Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this week's Monday Night Call. This topic is about how to calculate out the amount of money you need and the amount of property you need to own in order to replace your income, in order to be able to quit your job, make multifamily a full-time proposition for you. Because what had happened was, in a lot of my teachings, when I'm out there doing a one day, there was a time when I taught a particular module on how to calculate how many units you need to own in order to quit your job. And that was how it was. And the formula that we used was a little bit vague. You couldn't quite figure out why did we use these constants in the calculation. They've just been constants that we've used for years and years. So what I decided to do was to throw that module out entirely and start teaching it a new way, where we take into consideration another module that I teach on my Saturdays, which is the 5 ways to make money in multifamily. I think that's a much more practical, much more realistic approach to understanding, how much money you're going to be making from a particular property. I think that's going to be the best way for you to analyze your own particular situation and how you come up with the number that you need in order to quit your job. For those of you that come to some of my classes, my one-day, all-day classes, I'm going to be, actually, I think I'm going to be making them into 2-day classes because I've just got so much incredible content that I want to go over with everyone. So I think what you're going to be seeing is that next year I'm going to be doing 2-day classes instead of just 1 days. So one of the topics that I talk about is the, let me just move this out of the way, the 5 ways you make money in multifamily. And the way I start this discussion is I talk about it as being comparing the multifamily business to owning your own Subway franchise. And I use that example because it just makes sense. People understand, hey, I mean, if I own a Subway franchise, I only make money by selling the subs and making a profit on them. That's it. There's no other way to make money in multifamily. I mean, in subs. So I always use that as a comparison in my presentations. You'll never believe it. I finished my presentation in Boston one day, and I come up, this couple walks up to me and says, hey, I really appreciate your analysis of using the 5 ways to make money in multifamily and the subways, because we own a Subway franchise and we know exactly what you're talking about. So right away, of course, my mind goes back like, oh, geez, did I say something wrong? Am I in trouble? Which I usually am with my no-filtered mouth. But no, they said no, they appreciated it, they got it, and they signed up, and they're a part of the owners forum now. So what I talk about are the 5 ways, and here they are. You're going to make cash flow, otherwise known as profit. And you have to understand where that profit falls in the income and expense statement line package. You're going to make money through the appreciation of the property. As you drive the NOI higher, maintaining the same cap rate, which the market does for you, then you're seeing that the appreciation starts to grow in the property, and that's money in your bank account as well, but only when you sell the property. The other way is a mortgage pay down. When I say, hey, how many people have had 100 people pay down, put money into their retirement plan last month? And, everybody show of hands. Well, the fact is that that's what the mortgage pay down is. Every month that you have an amortizing note, the banks, with the bank, your tenants are retiring that debt, paying back your $1 million loan to the bank. And at the end of the day, you own an asset free and clear because somebody else paid for it. That's another way you make money in this business. Then you got property management. And this is what I tell people. The beautiful thing about property management is you pay yourself first. Okay? This is how you pay yourself first. Don't use a third-party property management company to do something that you can do or you're probably doing anyway on your property. And you get to keep that 5%. All the successful property owners that I've ever worked with, that I've ever consulted with, they all own their own property management company. Okay, that's how it works. Let me get that out of the way. Now, and then finally, the acquisition of the disposition fee. This is when you buy the property, if you're syndicating the deal. If you're buying the property and you're raising private money, you put some in for yourself. And then in the private placement memorandum, in addition to the acquisition fee, you have a disposition fee. So when you go to sell the property, you're also going to unload. You're going to also, when you unload the property, you're also going to receive a disposition fee, just like the acquisition fee. It's going to be a little bit more. Hopefully you're selling the property for a higher price. And the reason why we do this is because it takes a lot of work to sell a multifamily property. It takes months. You're probably going to start planning on selling that property 18 months before you sell it. And you got to get all the ducks in a row. You have to get everything lined up just right. And that's how the it works, the disposition fee. You want both going in and coming out. Okay, so let's go through, what we're going to do here is I'm going to take you through some actual numbers so you can do the analysis yourself. You might want to take notes on this, and you'll be able to follow what's going on and how we calculate out these numbers. Now, in this analysis, we're going to assume that the cap rate's 7%. We're going to assume that the price per unit is about $50,000. Okay, you'll see why I throw that number in there right now. Then we're going to assume the property is a B class. So, Charlie, why are we making these assumptions? Because if you know the rules of thumb for the deals and all the rules of thumb that apply to a certain type of asset, you'll understand why I put that B in there. And we're just going to say 20 units. First deal, 20 units. This is how we calculate out what you're going to be making on the deal. We're going to assume the cash on cash returns about 10%. We're going to need to replace $250,000 of income. And in this particular discussion, this property has 7 one-bedrooms that are getting $1,000 per month, and it's got 13 two-bedrooms that are getting $1,300 per month. Okay, and you own 100% of the deal, which means that you probably didn't syndicate this deal, which means that the acquisition fee and the disposition fee are not relevant to this discussion. You're not going to charge yourself an acquisition fee when you're putting down the down payment on your own. Okay, so just remember that. So if you see the 100% ownership there, the acquisition fee and the disposition fee you can get later on. So anyway, okay, let's talk about it now. The thing that I had done before, as I mentioned, was all about theory, and it wasn't something that you could sit there and put numbers to it. It was like, well, if I need $4 million, if I need to replace $250,000, we divide it by this, we divide it by 2.5. Why 2.5? Well, that's the theory behind it. Well, you know what? I'm done with that. Let's use real numbers, and that's why this discussion is not going to be about theory. It's going to be about practical. Okay? So I gave you the information already, right? I told you what the property is generating. First thing we need to do is figure out what the cash flow or the profit's going to be on this particular deal. Total gross collected rents, $272,460. You know how to figure that out. Just go back into the calculation from the assumptions, multiply by 12, boom, there's your number. Now, remember, it's a B-class property. So on a B-class property, you can expect the expense ratio to be about 50%. Boom. That means our net operating income is $136,230. Very simple. So follow me here. Now, remember that the mortgage payments, we have to go back and figure out the mortgage payments on here. And remember, if we're thinking, we can easily figure out what the mortgage payments are because we know what the NOI is. We know what the purchase, $50,000 per unit. It's $1 million property. The debt coverage ratio is 1.4. We're assuming debt coverage ratio is the net operating income over the mortgage payments for the same term, monthly NOI over monthly mortgage payment, or annual NOI over annual mortgage payments. And then we can calculate out from that what the mortgage amount is. So after the NOI, we subtract the mortgage payments and we come down to a profit of $38,923. Now remember, that's all profit. We own 100% of this property. That $38,000 is either going to get plowed back into the property in the form of capital expenditures, or it's going to go in our pocket. Okay, so there's the first way that we calculate out one of the 5 elements of how to make money in the multifamily, using real numbers. See how I did that? Very simple. Now, if you understand, if you have any questions about the expense ratios and stuff, listen, I've got so many training lessons on expense ratios and different quality assets and what you should expect, that you should know that cold. You really should know it cold, especially if you're going for that type of asset. You know, if you're looking at properties and you're seeing an expense ratio of like 38%, you know that's an A-class property. If you're looking at a C-class property and the guy's showing you a 38% expense ratio, out the door. All right, so that's the first one. Now, the next one is the appreciation. We can figure this one out as well, because we're expecting the rents to grow by 3%, and we're expecting the expenses to grow by 1%. That gives you a net 2% growth in your net operating income, right? So we go back to that original calculation on what is our NOI. We know what the NOI is going to increase by. It increases by $2,724 in that year. All right? Oh, that's all? Hey, hold on a second here. Let me show you what that translates out into. At a 7 cap, do the math. That means you just increased in value $38,000, almost $39,000 of an increase in value on the property just by increasing the rents, assuming the expense ratio remains the same. That's okay. Can you get that from a Subway franchise? No, you can't. All right, so now we've just picked up another $39,000. Now keep in mind, folks, this particular, and we're going to hold this property 5-10 years or so, this particular aspect or this particular function of how you make money, you don't receive this money on a monthly basis. You don't receive this money on an annual basis. You receive this money when you sell the property. Okay, so can I quit my job and lose my income? And no, this is asset building. You've got income, you've got assets. I just made a little bit more income and my assets. Love that. Okay, anyway, back to reality. Let me do this thing right here. There we go. Okay. So there's another component. That's number 2. Now let's go to number 3. Okay, mortgage pay down. Now remember, it's $1 million property. How do we know that? $50,000 per unit. Now do you know why I gave you those assumptions? 20% down, $800,000 loan, 20-year amortization, 5% interest, the annual mortgage pay down. And the thing is, folks, the cash flow analyzer does this work for you. Well, you just go on any, what's the guy's name? Dave Ramsey. You can go on daveramsey.com and you can use his mortgage pay down calculator. You just got to play around with the interest rate. So we're paying down the mortgage $23,000 every single month on a 20-year M. Remember, 20-year M. $23,000 every year, not every month, every year. Can you get that on a Subway loan? Yeah, you might be able to get it on a Subway loan, but that's it. Provided Subway the bank gave you an $800,000 loan to open up a Subway franchise. Good luck with that. Okay, so that's another way you make money. Next one, the property management revenue, folks. I just mentioned Dave Ramsey, and any of those types of guys who help you manage and understand money, great. And I listen, I'm Dave Ramsey. I learned tons from him. So if you guys are looking at that, that'll help you change your mindset on money. DaveRamsey.com. I really like Dave Ramsey. Okay, so and I still use everything. My whole goal is to be entirely debt free. That's my goal. I don't like debt. I listen to Dave Ramsey talk about debt, and he's so right. He's so right. Debt is great. Debt is a tool to use in your business. It's not a tool to have in your personal life. I know people are like, well, you can do this. Like, listen, fine, you be that way. In my book, I don't like to have debt. Debt just, it's like, what's your sleep number? When we talk about the debt coverage ratio, well, my debt sleep number is 0, and I'm not at 0. I'm not there yet, but man, it's gonna be a nice day. Gonna be a nice day. All right, so let's get back here. The property management revenue. This is about paying yourself first. This is what I was talking about. Why I went on this little bender here about Dave Ramsey. It's pay yourself first. Set the money aside first, and this is what property management revenue does, because there's going to be some months where your property doesn't make a profit. I'm sorry. You have a bad month. You have a couple of big expenditures. You're not going to make a dime on that unless you are the property management company. Then you take your money right off the top. So let's go back and figure out how we calculate it out. Very simple. We've got the rental income. We know what that's going to be. Then, we figure out the vacancy factor. We reduce that gross revenue by that vacancy factor. And then we take the percentage of the property management fee right off the top, $17,000. This property will generate in income. Is that income that you're going to get every single month that you can quit your job over? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the money that's going to pay your kids' tuitions. It's going to pay your mortgage. It's going to pay your put food on your table every single month. This is how you want to run your business. Why give that $17,000 to some other jamoke? You can hire anyone you want to do the work on the property and put the $17,000 in your pocket. Now here we get to the acquisition fee. All right, now remember, number of units, $50,000. The price of the property is $1 million. We put in a 3% acquisition fee. That's $30,000 at the closing table. Yeah, that goes into your pocket at the closing table. I purchased a $7.5 million property. We put a little over close to $250,000 in our pocket that day. Can you spend that money? Yes, you can. And we did. And that's money that you can make and budget and pay your kids' tuition and live off of and quit your job off of. Okay? But let me say this, and this is something that I've seen happen quite a bit, and it really, really bothers me. The worst reason to buy a multifamily property is because you need the acquisition fee to live on. Worst reason. You buy the property because it's a good asset. It's a good investment. You don't buy the property because, if I don't buy this property, then I don't get the $70,000 acquisition fee and my wife's going to leave me. Guys, I'm not making this stuff up. This is the kind of conversations I've had with students. And the example I just gave about my wife leaving me, yeah, that's exactly why the guy wanted to do it. I said, no, don't. This is a bad deal. Don't do it. You know what? He did it. And he lived to tell about it, but it was the worst deal he's ever done, and then he went off to do more deals because he loves those acquisition fees. He's no longer a student of mine. Wish him all the best. But, if you don't listen to me, if you're looking to build up a shady business, I can't help you. I don't want to be any part of it. So make sure the acquisition fee is not the reason why you're doing the deal. You're doing the deal because the deal is a good deal. All right, next. So let's put this all into practice. Everything I've just taught you is there for the taking. This is how we make money in multifamily. So take a look at this. We add up the total annual income, but I say annual. You're not going to receive this money until you sell the property down the road. Well, start acquiring assets. At some point, you're going to be, 5 years from now, this is going to be all your money. So let's do it. Let's do this. Acquisition fee, $30,000. Cash profit, $38,923. The appreciation, $38,000. This is on a 20-unit property. Mortgage pay down, I didn't put in there because I didn't think my numbers, based upon the assumptions that I was giving, I didn't think my numbers were accurate. So you're going to have to use real numbers when you're doing this on your own property. And the property management fee. Folks, look at these numbers. This is a 20-unit property. Now do you see how people get incredibly wealthy on multifamily? Look at this again and apply these things to a Subway franchise. What applies? Just one, the cash profit, $38,000. Maybe the property management fee if you pay yourself a salary because you're there working every day. This is how we calculate out in practice the numbers and how you make money in the multifamily business. So that old module that I used to teach is out the window. I'm using this one now. This is how I'm going to teach people how to calculate out how much money you make in multifamily. Okay? I'm going to add this to my my one-day lessons, which is why my one-day lessons are going to have to be 2-day lessons because we keep adding great stuff like this. This is the type of stuff that gets taught in the one-day session. It's all very practical, hands-on, and I'm standing right in front of you explaining it. So if ever you want to come to one of those sessions, come on down. Great chatting with you. I hope this was helpful. This is the end of our Monday night call redux. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. You all know how to get a hold of me. Okay, I'll talk to y'all later.